It was one of the most nauseating displays of hypocrisy that we've seen in years and years in the Dáil. And there's been a lot of them. Because, I mean, the propaganda and the spin and the hypocrisy, the way the government and Fianna Fáil and Labour, the way they've wrapped themselves in the green flag sponsored by Apple, the way they're using the language of sovereignty, the way they're giving out about the European Commission and the European Union and talking about standing up for the rights of small nations. It's utterly, utterly disgusting. And I think it isn't lost on people. I think people do draw the contrast between them standing up for corporations like Apple versus them refusing to stand up for workers on the minimum wage whose wage were cut by the Troika, against those, all of whom have paid for the cost of the bank bailout, 42% of the total European cost of the bank bailout, for those who have suffered in terms of the devastation of public services as a result of refusing to pay the bondholders, again demanded by the European Commission. And I think it's a very dangerous situation for the government, and it's why they have such extensive spin and argumentation and talk about sovereignty, because it clarifies politics extremely simply in this country. That some people, the government, the establishment parties, represent the rich. They represent the big corporations. They don't represent ordinary people. It's not our government, it's their government. And the left is trying to represent ordinary people. And I think people can be a bit bemused at how they've managed to get away with it. You know, how have they managed to spin the thing whereby there is 13 billion plus of real money. It's not made up money, it's not fantasy money as the government would like people to believe. And they've managed to, and they'll get it through the Dáil tonight with a big majority, to say that we're going to stand up for Ireland and we're going to go to the European courts to fight that Apple keeps the money, to fight that it goes on Apple's cash pile. How have they got away with it? And I think they've only got away with it temporarily, and they'll pay a price for it in the medium to long run, definitely. And I think we should be confident that that'll be the case. And the way they've done it is this incredible campaign of spin. I mean, the role of the media, if anyone's been reading Irish Independent editorials and all the talk about sovereignty and standing up for Ireland, you'd only wish that they had some of those things at the time of the water charges or the property tax or the Troika or the bailout or any of these things. They have this massive campaign, and then they have a fear of people. A fear of people that this economy is so weak, that the Irish capitalist class is so weak, is so crap, is so unable to develop the economy that people feel vulnerable to the ability of multinationals to leave. And the government scaremongering plays into that vulnerability. And it means that they can have a certain impact. But in the long run, or even in the medium run, they're going to pay the price. This is going to be their bank guarantee moment. Because literally every single time they come for anything now, every working class person will think, well, you could have got the 13 billion. Imagine when they come back next March or April and try to bring some kind of water charges back. Well, what kind of reaction will people have? What possibility will they have of getting money off people? Imagine next week when they try and justify the latest scandal in healthcare. How will people accept that when they say, you chose to fight to keep the money with Apple? How will they justify and stand over the thousands of children who are homeless, the 100,000 are on housing waiting lists, the crisis that we know? How will they do that when you have the 13 billion available there? And it's just going to undermine the government quite fundamentally. It'll create real pressure on them, and it'll hasten their departure, in my opinion. And it hastens, I think, for people clarity about some simple truths that they try to deny. Ireland is a tax haven. That's a fact. All of them will vote tonight to say it's not a tax haven, but it doesn't change facts. The Dáil doesn't have the ability to change what is reality out there by simply voting for things. Ireland is a tax haven. It's why Apple has paid no tax. It's why Google has paid no tax. It's why Facebook has paid no tax. It's why Starbucks has paid no tax. It's why half of the top 50 banks are located in the IFSC. It's why a huge number of the bonds are located in the IFSC. It's why you can go to a building in the IFSC and find 78,000 companies in one building with no employees. Ireland is a tax haven. And Ireland as a tax haven has worked for the rich, for the 1%, for the people the government represents, but it hasn't worked for working class people, it hasn't worked for the majority, it hasn't created an economy that delivers for the vast majority of people. And that's the reality, and we have to use the debate to say we need a break with that economy. We need a break with running our society for profit, for saying the corporations' profits come before everything else. So use the 13 billion, deliver services that people need, invest in creating real jobs, develop green energy, invest in technology, invest in broadband, but also let's build a different economy. An economy based on public ownership, democratic control, use the resources that exist to deliver the needs of ordinary people. The final point, and that's I think what they're trying to avoid, is just to return to this point about what it says about the government. Why they decide to stand up and fight for Apple. And it's this point that they represent the rich. And James Connolly put his finger on it over 100 years ago. He said governments in capitalist society are nothing but committees of the rich. That's their job, and that is their job. And they want the next government to be another committee of the rich, with reconfigured positions of committee responsibility. And we have to use this to say to as many people as possible, no more committees of the rich. We want a government of ordinary people, a government of the 99%, a left government with socialist policies.